You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Angeli, for those that don't know, is a top 20 overall transfer quarterback on 24/7 Sports and on On3, and he's actually rated higher than LSU transfer Ricky Collins, who Syracuse got earlier this offseason. Now, for some context for you all, FanDuel has not changed Syracuse's over-under win total for next season, which is only for the regular season. Syracuse's over-under is 5.5 wins. Now, the way I look at it is this. I am slightly raising my expectations for Syracuse football in 2025. Yes, folks, I myself, Jackson Holzer, is feeling a little bit more optimistic about Syracuse football with Steve Angeli here. And here's why I believe this. Here's why I'm slightly raising my expectations. Not by all that much, just a little bit, all right? I listened to what Spencer McLaughlin of the Locked On College Football Podcast had to say about Steve Angeli. And he made a great point about him. His point was, and I'll paraphrase what he said, Steve Angeli was in the running to be Notre Dame's starting quarterback this upcoming season. Keep in mind that Notre Dame is a team that's like Texas, which we talked about in the last segment. Notre Dame is a team that is one of the favorites to win the national championship next season. And Steve Angeli had a legitimate chance to be the starting quarterback for that team. Now, he didn't win the job. CJ Carr won the job. But to what Spencer was saying, it doesn't mean that Steve Angeli is a bad quarterback. It actually really means that CJ Carr was just better. You can have two good quarterbacks in the same room. It happens. Guess what? Even though Kyle McCord did not transfer out of Ohio State until he went 11-1 and then went to Syracuse football, the years prior, he was sitting behind CJ Stroud. You can have multiple good quarterbacks in the same quarterback room in college football, much less so in the NFL. But in college, absolutely, you can have two good quarterbacks. So just because Steve Angeli didn't win the starting job at Notre Dame, a team that could win the national championship next season, it doesn't mean he's bad. It just means that CJ Carr might be the better option. He might be slightly better than Steve Angeli. But Notre Dame saw enough from Steve Angeli to where they gave him a chance to be the team's starting quarterback next season. They gave him a legitimate opportunity. And that says something. See, that's the difference in my mind between a guy like Steve Angeli and a guy like Ricky Collins. Ricky Collins never really got a chance to be LSU's starting quarterback. Now, maybe it was because that the other options were just far superior. I mean, Jaden Daniels and then Garrett Nussmeier. But Ricky Collins never even made it a conversation. Steve Angeli did. Yeah, he sat behind Sam Hartman. He sat behind Riley Leonard. But he never transferred out. He could have transferred out in the fall. He could have transferred out last year. But for whatever reason, he never did. Why? Probably because Notre Dame was always going to give him the chance to eventually be the team's starting quarterback. They saw enough in Steve Angeli to where they were going to give him a chance. Did not win the job, but it doesn't mean that he is bad. So what's the win total now for Syracuse football? I still think there is a lot of work to do for Syracuse. I think they need to shore up the offensive line. They need to add at least one, maybe even two wide receivers to this offense. And we'll talk more in the next segment that two Florida State visitors certainly fit the profile of an offensive line and a wide receiver, because they are our offensive line and wide receiver. So here's really the deal. I don't think the range of outcomes for Syracuse has changed. I think there is a wide range of outcomes for Syracuse next year, to the point where I can see Syracuse being really good, and I can also see Syracuse being really bad. I could see them winning anywhere between, if you look at their schedule, anywhere between 3 games and 9 games, which if you split the difference means I think they're going to go 6-6. Now, That range to me doesn't change with Steve Angeli now in the mix. But what it does do is I see now more the positive side with Steve Angeli, meaning now I think it's a little bit more likely that Syracuse finishes on the higher range of outcomes, meaning they win 7, 8, 9 games, more so than I could see them winning 3 or 4 games with Steve Angeli likely as the starting quarterback. Hence why I say that my expectations have been slightly raised. It's not that I'm really predicting them to win more games. It's more so I think there is a higher, I think I can see the ceiling a little bit more clear than I did earlier.